Hello everyone, this is Turki Tamimi from Saudi Arabia. I am a participant in PMO Hack COVID-19, introduced and provided by PMO Global Alliance. I would start by thanking Global Alliance by giving us this opportunity to be a part of this hackathon and share our knowledge and experience. Our topic today is related to PMO support in regard to the crisis management, especially COVID-19. As everybody knows that it is an urgent and it is a sudden issue that impacted multiple organizations, multiple businesses, even multiple governments. And the level of impact is still unknown, even if we are still learning every day, and we are trying to make decisions based on what we learn from this impact. Some organizations are somehow prepared by business continuity plans and crisis management plan. Some are not. In terms of PMO parts here, we think that, and we believe that PMO is an important function at any organization, and it is important and crucial to be a part of this crisis management plan and response plan in regard to COVID-19. There are many factors and many angles that PMO can support in regard to this pandemic. However, we try to focus on two main important points. The first one is related to how the PMO would support in regard to changing ways of working, and how the PMO can support and facilitate decision-making process and help the business to prioritize well. So, what we are going to consider is how the PMO can work as a control and command center. A PMO might own this control and command center, or maybe can be a part of this center. However, a PMO must be there and must be available. We are going to discuss providing guidance to remote working conditions and helping business in priority changes decision with real-time recommendations. The project objectives is, as just discussed, is to show how the PMO must be flexible in regard to changing the services being provided, and to show a valuable support during this crisis. Of course, with the existing strategies, expertise, knowledge, sharing information, and all data about organization, we believe that PMO can lead and support this crisis management response. What we are going to end up this project with is by having a framework for PMO to crisis response, and to give a little bit focus on changing the ways of working and how PMO can support this, and the communication and decision-making points. So this is the scope, as discussed. It's just a guideline and related to communication and PMO support in regard to crisis response and decision-making process. In addition to that, we are going to discuss how the PMO can change and need to be changed in regard to this crisis. The PMO itself must have changes inside the function itself. So these are the most important the points that we are going to discuss. A guideline for remote working, focusing on communication, employee motivation, and decision making, and PMO support in regard to priority and decision making. and what are the changes that PMO need to do inside itself as a function. So when it comes to remote working, maybe some organizations have already worked in such conditions, some not. So we are going to assume that the organization we are considering is never worked in remote working world. So first thing we believe that a PMO must provide in terms of guidance to remote working, a clear instructions for everybody in the organization. Starts having like a remote working plan that shows what are the communication, in terms of communication, what are the communication platforms, how for example, when we are going to discuss the VPN access as an example, how the VPN is going to be granted, what are the criteria. All of these points must be in place and must be a start so that uncertainty would be killed at the beginning. So another point is we are going to remote working because of people's health and risk related to people health. PMO can be a part of having a risk group, or maybe the PMO itself can be a risk group related to remote working conditions, and what are the to assess what are the risks related to remote working conditions. For example, in case of access management, what are for example, what are the projects that need to be accessed online, what are the data that need to be accessed, and so on. Remote working plan, as we discussed, this is what we should start with, along with clear instructions. So once we have this in place, we should have a decision implementation plan, and the PMO should work side by side with HR to review KPI and indicators. It's not only HR for employees, and for strategy to review the strategy KPIs and strategic goal during this crisis, because a strategic goal might not be applicable anymore because of the impact of this crisis. So what are the KPIs in regard to remote working? What are the KPIs in regard to projects implementation? Here is a point that whatever you do, if you lose this point, you are going to lose everything. So employees motivation. A PMO must have right framework, right support to motivate employees to work from home, work remotely, because most people used to face-to-face communication, but this might not be applicable anymore within this crisis. So PMO must find ways to motivate employees to share their feedback, to be in the meetings online, and to like help them to prepare the environment, the needed environment to work from home. 5 important aspects in regard to remote working. The first one is communication. PMO must have the right communication, even help to support the organization to have and agree on communication platform, and what are the communications that need to be done, or to whom and how frequent. So within this crisis, I believe frequency of meetings, meetings timeline or meeting time need to be shortened somehow to help the organization to take the right decision, and to engage more people in the communication channel. And as a PMO must be available in terms of alignment, in terms of making sure that all stakeholders are engaged, aligned, data are integrated together, and always share feedback and ask for feedback. In terms of decision, PMO can support in regard to this point to try as much as possible to minimize the decision cycle and provide the needed information at the right time, even try to provide real-time feedback, real-time analysis, real-time assessment of the taken decision. In terms of priority, again, this is not related to like priority that we are going to discuss in the next slide. This is related to, for example, prioritize what are the projects that can be worked remotely, what are the projects that cannot, and based on that, we go back again to our main point, which is the clear instructions to have in our framework. Now we are. This is what we just discussed is related to remote working. In terms of prioritizing and decision making, we have multiple points to consider. However, we agreed to as a team to share these 6 points as an important point to consider. And when it comes to priority, PMO can help and focus on the point that people health and safety is crucial. So regardless the project that you are working on, regardless the business, so health, people, safety, it is more important than anything. If you lose your employees' health, you are going to lose everything. Your total business depends on your people, your employees. So if you keep focus on people health and safety, this is the most important in terms of priorities. And like, for example, what action that need to be taken, for example, having changes in ways of working, like applying remote working, for example. If there are some projects that cannot be worked remotely, don't let all people come to office. Try as much as you can to reduce the number of people coming to office. The next point is in regarding to priority, how the PMO can support. Always stay focused on strategy. So we have a strategy as an organization. However, we just discussed that even this strategy might be changed due to the crisis we are going through. So always check the strategic goal you have. What are the projects that can be implemented? And what are the strategic goals that should be changed in related to the priority and related to the assessment of the crisis? Third point is BAU has privilege on projects. So maybe as a business, of course, they would care about making the money, running the business. Everyone would love to do this. However, there are priorities need to be taken. There are priorities need to be in place. For example, running the business is more important than running any project that would not bring a value during this crisis. So you need to make a balance between the business as usual, the projects that might be cancelled, might be on hold for some time, and then you can bring it back after this crisis. In order to do this, in order to provide changes needed on strategy, in order to provide the right priorities in regard to business as usual and provide the right balance, PMO must do a continuous assessment of the impact of the crisis on the priority has been taken. So keep monitoring the decision done by the government, keep monitoring decision taken by other organizations. Try to look for examples, try to have like a data of a warehouse of lessons learned of others organization, for example. So try to keep assessing the impact of this crisis in regard to priority, in regard to your business as an organization. And PMO should be part and main part when it comes to information management. So PMO should have the should be like an information radiator which support all organization functions with the right information, making sure all stakeholders are aligned in terms of the information provided, in terms of the decision. For example, when it comes to meeting, PMO can provide a governance to every meeting, like minutes of meeting must be sent and communicated at the right at the end of the meeting, so that every stakeholder can assess the impact and help in taking the right decision. When we talk about a priority, we talk about decision going to be done, decision going to be made on like project, on business as usual, on what are the projects that need to be, for example, put on hold, need to be canceled. So it's not only this, even we can take some decision related, as we discussed, on the ways of working. Maybe some line of business might be stopped for some time. So these are all decisions. And within this crisis, every organization, every government takes they are taking some decision. But the point here, sometimes we don't know whether it is the right decision we take or no. So as a PMO, we must keep assessing the decision taken and how they work out. If this was not done as a PMO service before this crisis, so it should be done now and future, for now and for future as well. So keep assessing your decision. Keep helping your executive management to assess the decision they take. Because as a PMO, we have all strategic project, we have all information, we have all updates about project. We are the information center of our organization. So we should, as a PMO, provide this support in regard to assessing the decision that's going to be done. So to wrap up, we have priorities, we have decision making need to be done and related to these priorities. As we discussed, people health is more crucial. And again, every organization working based on a strategy, keep reviewing your strategy and changing in regard to the impact of this crisis. Business as usual, we encourage to be prioritized over projects. And in case there are some projects that need to be prioritized, keep assessing the impact of the crisis on these projects, because at the beginning of the crisis, this project might not be impacted, but in the middle or at the end, it might be impacted. So there is no value from doing and having effort on those projects. A PMO must provide and keep assessing the decision taken by executive supports and any function in the organization, because we have the right information, we have all data about projects, we have all data about decisions that are being made. So we discussed remote working changes and what PMO can do. We discussed how PMO can support in regard to priority and change management. So now as a PMO, there are changes. We believe that if a PMO did not do or did not make these changes, none of the supports in the remote working or even support in decision-making process would be in the right way or in the valuable or would bring them the needed value if the PMO didn't make the changes by itself as a function. So when we say, for example, keep reviewing your strategy, here a PMO must lead by example by keep reviewing the services being provided to the organization and see what are the services that need to be stopped. For example, yes, they might be valuable at some time, but during this crisis they are not. So keep reviewing your services, lead by example, try to when it comes to, for example, communications, try to be connected at all time, try to help the organization by reporting on real-time basis. Be agile and flexible. We are here talking about decision-making changes and priority changes. So we should support in terms of changing and having the environment that allow these changes to happen, which is being agile, being flexible, in order to accelerate the decision-making process. And most important thing, always keep recording lessons learned. Always keep recording lessons learned from whatever scenario, whatever situation you face during this crisis, because in this crisis, no one before this crisis knows about it. We don't know what's gonna happen later, so we need like a lesson learned bank from this crisis, as it impacts. It's not only business, not only government, it's not only human. It is impacting everybody. So we should record this and that, and this must be valuable for any PMO. What is after crisis? So what we discussed is related to points during the crisis. When we discuss the last point here, when we remember this, we say keep recording lesson learned. If you don't keep recording your lesson learned from this crisis, so you are not going to reach this level. So as a PMO, after this crisis, you need to establish a plan from a head team. So every function in the organization should have a business continuity plan, decision-making process. Go back and check your decision-making process. I assume, for example, let's say some meetings before this crisis, when it was done face-to-face communication on physical and in our offices, maybe one meeting might last for 1 hour, 1 hour and a half without any value. But now, even though everybody in his home and we are discussing our meetings remotely, we see that our meetings bringing value more than before. And even the time we are taking for our meetings is much less than what we take for when it comes to physical and in our offices. So these changes show that we are flexible, we can adapt, even though we are in a crisis, but we can change. So go and check your decision-making process, check it with your executive management, try to give more authorities to people. Don't put decision-making in a centralized environment. Try to be decentralized. This is when it comes to decision-making. Now, remote working plan. Some organizations, this is new for them, as we discussed. Some know they work somehow in regard to remote working, but this is a change in ways of working. So try to have a remote working plan. Try to be ready for such crisis. Try to have it, for example, done in your organization, like work from home 2 days a month, for example, and that would remove all obstacles and encourage people to be motivated more and more. New customer services. As a PMO, during this crisis, you might be able to provide the new services that were not even in your service catalog at the beginning. So that means you need to be flexible. You need to change your services. You need to make sure that as a PMO providing the valuable service that organization can see the value from it and perceive it. Lessons learned, it is always there and it should be there and it will be there. So always keep recording your lesson learned. You don't know what you are going to face. If we are not making mistakes, we are not going to learn. So that's it. I would like now to thank all the team members. And again, special thanks to PMO Global Alliance, who give us this opportunity to share our experience, our knowledge. Special thanks to the team for giving us from their time to this project. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for sharing your experience, and I hope you find it valuable. Thank you very much.